Your go-to. What is a go-to? A go-to is, what do you go to when everything around you is falling apart? What do you do? How do you stand firm? What pulls you through when everything around you is blowing up? Everybody reacts differently to different situations. And it's interesting, I was with a group of guys tonight, a bunch of buddies of mine. And one of our buddies in the group, he talked about how one of his sons, his adult sons, is very sick and has this condition. And this guy, he's had a lot of really hard things happen in his life, a lot of bad things he's made it through. But man, like he's had challenges that are just unreal, and in some ways, is still facing some of those challenges. And as we were talking tonight in this group, one of our mutual friends, my other buddy, he looked at him and he said, he said, every time you seem to go through something, you end up telling people about Jesus. Now, this is, my buddy's a Christian, obviously. And he actually looked kind of puzzled at first because he didn't really realize that his go-to thing when he goes through hard times, he didn't even realize he was doing it. But he was looking back on different times in his life that things were tough, challenges he didn't know how to handle. And every time it seems that he goes out and he just starts telling people about Jesus, giving people hope to win the battles that they're fighting in their lives. And I just thought that was so interesting because when our mutual friend said that, he kind of looked weird. He didn't really, sometimes, we don't even realize when we default to our go-to thing. When we go through things, a lot of times, whether it's with a tragedy or whether it's with a gift we have, sometimes we don't even know we're doing it. The world looks at it and sometimes is wowed by it, but we're not trying to do it. For me, for example, if you follow me on Facebook or any other social media, I've had people often ask me, and I brought this up tonight, that's why I mention it, but I've had people ask me, where do you think up all your content? Do you get writer's block? And the answer is no. Anything you see on Facebook, I don't sit around trying to think this stuff up. If something comes to me, I post it. And so that's all I do. I mean, it comes from a source way beyond me. It's like stuff just falls into my mind and I share it. And lo and behold, it's something somebody had to hear at a particular moment of pain or desperation. And so I want you to think about it in your life because it's very revealing how we act when we're put into pressure. And when things happen in our lives that we don't understand, or we lose a loved one, or a divorce happens, or we lose a family member, something happens to somebody we love, or in my case, maybe you have a friend who doesn't make it back from war and you do, and you ask that ultimate question we always ask when hard times happen: why? Why me? Or why did I make it back and he or she didn't? Or why did this happen? So and so doesn't deserve to go through that. Or and it's not, things happen in life that, that we don't always deserve those things to happen to us, but they do. And I just thought it was really interesting. I thought it was a good talking point. And I want you to think about in your life, what's your go-to? When you go through a hard time, what is it you default to? And ask some of your close, trusted friends who have been around a little while, and they can observe you and watch you. They can tell you probably better than you can. I know that when I go through hard times, I end up getting around people who have also been hurt. And I default to just trying to help them with any advice I can give them, any insight that can help them find resolution or an answer to their situation, to help them win their own inner battles. And that's not something I ever intended to do. But I also find it to be very interesting that when we're going through a hard time, when you just get out there and stop focusing so much on what you're going through, and I'm not saying it should be dismissed or ignored or it's not real or anything like that, but when we stop focusing so much on what we're going through and we try and help other people win their battles in spite of what the battle we're facing, it not only helps them, but it's very interesting how there's a reciprocal effect. Reciprocal, if you don't know, is a mathematical term. I didn't love algebra, but I did well in it, so I did what I had to do. It means it comes back to you. There's a lot of self-help teaching out there right now, and there has been for a while that says if you're seeking truth, just look within yourself. Look, that's a load of crap. You will never find truth looking within yourself because number one, you're the main character in your own story. And with that come blind spots. You can't see the whole big picture by looking at yourself. But number two, we as human beings just aren't designed, or however you want to see it or whatever you believe, we are not designed to find a sense of meaning in life by looking at ourselves and focusing only on ourselves. It always comes through helping other people. I think that's why I unintentionally, 10 years ago, started speaking. And again, if you've seen me speak, I speak all over the world, and it's a huge privilege. I never meant to do this. I really didn't. It was just like the right people came into my life at the right time. My original mentor, Dave Reaver, happened to just magically appear into my life, and it was like the one person that couldn't have been a better individual to come into my life at the time he did. And I didn't learn this on purpose. I learned it by accident. When I got off stage, the very first time I spoke, I had a young lady come up to me, and I was in burn bandages still. I was wrapped up in burn bandages. I was still at the hospital recovering. And Dave put me up on stage in front of 3,000 people. I didn't know he was going to do it. And I said, hey, I'm Brian. I got blown up. I guess I'm still here for a reason. Go for it. You know, if you want to know more about what I'm talking about, if you don't know my story, just go to blownupguy.com. It's real easy to remember. But I got off stage, and this young lady told me, she said, hey, Brian, I was raped and I was abused and I was molested and all this horrible stuff. And her boyfriend was abusive and he just broke up with her. And I didn't know what to say to her. I'm just like, wow, that sucks. I mean, that was like my best advice. It was horrible. But she said, but if God can bring you through all of that, she said, I think he can get me through this. And the interesting thing about that, well, number one, it was the game changer in my life. It completely altered the course of my life. It was the 1 degree shift that changed everything. But the interesting thing about it is that I didn't have any answers for her. A lot of times we think we have to have answers for people. And sometimes people just have knowledge of what we've been through. And that's enough that it helps them, that it gives them hope that they can make it too. And, I just want you to think about what's the go-to in your life. What's the thing that you default to? And is it giving life or is it giving death? And look, I've given life and death, and with my words, my gosh, I'm not the worst person out there, but I know me, and I have not always been the greatest person. Earlier on in my life, I was very self-focused, and I'm not that way anymore. But think about, it's not about just you. When you go through something, there's a ripple effect that the world is receiving, and those around you with what you're going through. Your family, your close circle of friends, those you work with, people are being affected by you. You have more influence than you think you do. And it's either affecting them positively or negatively. They're either watching somebody who's constantly grumbling and complaining, or they're watching somebody who they can't believe the amount of pressure this person is going through and how little they complain. And they're pressing through it, believing that things are somehow going to turn around, even if all of the evidence turns in the opposite direction and points the opposite way. I've heard stories of real people, not fake stories, real people. I don't remember the guy's name, but there was one guy, he had cancer. He was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, gonna die. You have 3 months to live, you're hopeless. Doctor's you're finished. And he just refused to believe it. People would tell him he's in denial. You need to face reality. This is serious. Stop messing around. And he literally refused to believe he had it. And he just lived as if he didn't have it. And eventually he went back, I don't remember how many months it was, but he went back to the doctor and the cancer was gone. It's there's a lot of spiritual things beyond that. There's a lot of explanations or thoughts about explanations behind that, but I don't know. This person was so stubborn that the cancer just went away. And the thing is, I've heard that kind of story more than once. And so don't think that your thoughts or your perceptions don't have any power over your life or the lives of other people. I guess I'm kind of going preacher on you tonight, but there is a part in the Bible that says there's life and death in the power of the tongue. And I've experienced this for the better, and I've experienced this for worse. There were 2 or 3 times in Afghanistan where I got frustrated and mad, and I would just kind of go off the deep end and I'd say something. Well, then it happened 2 and 3 times. And I stopped saying that kind of stuff. because we saw it happening. One of my buddies even told me to shut up because I said something and it happened. It was like the third time, and I'm like, don't worry, I'm shutting up. I'm done. And one time, okay, coincidence. Twice, wow, that was kind of crazy. Third time, it's like we're speaking things into existence here. So what's your go-to? When you go through something, is it to just shut down, or do you believe that there is a bigger picture being painted here that maybe, just maybe, you can't see you can't see it in its entirety yet, but you believe maybe you will? I'll tell you right now, that's what I've always believed through the hard times I've been through, and I've never been disappointed. And you know what? Hey, I'm still here. I believe that's for a reason. You're still here regardless of what you've been through. I think it's for a reason. Whether you believe that or not, I don't care. I believe it. I believe it for you. And I believe you're going to see great things through it. And so make sure your go-to is something that is not only helpful to you, but it's also edifying to other people, because you have no idea the kind of battles they're facing. What is your go-to? Think about it.